The 6'3" woman standing in the dusty general store of Republic, Arizona Territory, knew every eye was on her, and not in admiration. Olivia Wright had learned to recognize the whispers, the poorly concealed stares, the way mothers pulled their daughters closer as if her height was something contagious that might infect their properly petite offspring. "Lord have mercy, that girl is built like a scarecrow, Mrs. Henderson said to her companion, not bothering to lower her voice as they examined bolts of calico fabric. "No wonder she ain't found herself a husband. What man wants to look up at his wife?" Olivia kept her eyes fixed on the shelf of canned goods before her, her cheeks burning despite her best efforts to remain impassive. She had heard it all before, in every town from Kansas to Colorado to here in this sweltering Arizona settlement where her father had dragged them 6 months ago, chasing rumors of silver deposits in the nearby mountains. At 22 years old, she had perfected the art of pretending deafness. "I heard her mother was tall too," the other woman responded. "Died giving birth, they say. Probably for the best, really. Can you imagine 2 of them walking around town?" The words struck deeper than usual. Perhaps because her mother had only been gone 3 years. Perhaps because Olivia still missed her desperately. Perhaps because her mother had been the only person who made her feel like her height was something to be proud of rather than ashamed. "Can I help you find something, Miss Wright?" The shopkeeper, Mr. Dawson, approached with a nervous smile. He was a kind man, but even kindness could not erase the awkwardness in his eyes as he craned his neck to meet her gaze. "Just the flour and sugar my father ordered," Olivia replied quietly, her voice steady despite the tightness in her throat. The year was 1883, and the Arizona Territory was still raw and untamed, full of possibility for men but offering precious little for a woman who did not fit the mold. Republic had sprung up 3 years earlier when copper was discovered in the surrounding hills, and now it boasted 2 saloons, a hotel, a church, and a population of about 300 souls, most of them male. One would think with such odds, even a tall woman might find a suitor, but Olivia had learned that men preferred to remain alone rather than be seen with a woman who made them feel small. She paid for her supplies and lifted the heavy sacks with ease, another source of consternation for the good people of Republic. A proper lady should struggle with such burdens, should need assistance, should be delicate and helpless. Olivia was none of those things, and she had stopped pretending years ago. The September sun blazed overhead as she stepped onto the wooden sidewalk, squinting against the glare. The town was busy today, wagons rattling down the main street, miners heading to the assay office, ranch hands watering their horses at the trough. She had just started toward her father's wagon when a group of young men outside the saloon caught sight of her. "Hey there, Goliath," one of them called, and his companions erupted in laughter. "Need a ladder to kiss the boys goodnight." Olivia kept walking, her spine rigid, the flour sack clutched against her chest like armor. "Bet she could look a horse straight in the eye," another added. "Might make a good jockey if they let women race." More laughter. Always more laughter. She was nearly to the wagon when a new voice cut through the mockery, deep and calm and edged with something dangerous. "I reckon you boys got nothing better to do than harass a lady going about her business." Olivia turned, as did everyone else on the street. The man who had spoken stood on the saloon steps, and the first thing she noticed was that she would not have to look down to meet his eyes. The second thing she noticed was that he was easily the most striking man she had ever seen, with dark hair that brushed his collar, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and eyes so blue they were startling in his sun-bronzed face. He wore dusty trail clothes, a gun belt slung low on his hips, and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. "We're just having some fun, stranger," one of the men said, but his voice had lost its bravado. "Fun should involve folks who are enjoying themselves," the stranger replied. "That lady look like she is enjoying herself to you." The men shifted uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in their boots. "Didn't think so," the stranger continued. "Now, I suggest you boys find something productive to do with your afternoon, or I might have to demonstrate what I consider fun." His hand rested casually on his gun belt, not threatening exactly but making his point nonetheless. The young men dispersed quickly, muttering excuses. The stranger watched them go, then turned his attention to Olivia. He was tall, she realized, taller than her, perhaps 6'5" or 6. He descended the steps with a loose-limbed grace and approached, removing his hat as he did so. "Apologies for their behavior, miss," he said. Their mothers clearly failed in their upbringing. Olivia found herself staring, momentarily robbed of speech. Up close, he was even more impressive, with the kind of raw masculine beauty that belonged on one of those dime novel covers, all chiseled features and penetrating gaze. And she was looking up at him, actually looking up. "When had that last happened? I'm used to it," she managed to say, then felt foolish for admitting such a thing to a stranger. "Well, you shouldn't have to be." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, warming those remarkable eyes. Yates Lawson, currently between employment opportunities, which is a polite way of saying I'm broke and looking for work. Despite everything, Olivia felt her lips quirk in response. "Olivia Wright. My father has a claim up in the hills." "Right," Yates repeated, as if tasting the name. "That suits you. Strong, straightforward, no nonsense." "That's one way of putting it," Olivia said. "Most people would say mannish, ungainly, or unnatural." Yates tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow was not. "Most people are fools. You're perfect for a man my size." The words hung in the hot afternoon air, and Olivia felt something shift in her chest, a sensation she could not quite name. Hope, possibility, danger, all three perhaps. "That's quite forward of you, Mr. Lawson," she said, trying to maintain her composure even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "I've been accused of worse," he replied easily. "Truth is, I've been traveling from Texas to here for the better part of 6 months, and I've met a lot of folks in between. But I ain't never seen anyone carry herself with the kind of dignity you just showed, walking past those fools with your head high. That takes more courage than most men can claim." Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks, but this time it was not from shame. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're strong enough to carry 50 pounds of flour like it weighs nothing. I know you're brave enough to walk through town alone despite knowing you'll face mockery. And I know you have kind eyes, even when you're hurting." He paused. "That's enough to want to know more if you are willing to tolerate the company of a drifter with more pride than sense." "I should get these supplies back to my father," Olivia said, but she made no move to climb into the wagon. "Your father, the one with the claim up in the hills? I heard mention at the saloon that Richard Wright was looking for help with his operation." "You heard correctly. He's been looking for someone reliable for weeks, but most of the men in town prefer the mines. The pay is more certain." "I'm not most men," Yates said, "and I prefer working where I can see the sky. Being underground makes me feel like I'm already in my grave." "It's hard work," Olivia warned. "Long days, uncertain returns. Papa isn't rich, he can't pay much." "I don't need much. Just fair wages and honest work." Yates smiled again. "And maybe the chance to get to know his daughter a bit better if she was inclined." Olivia knew she should be cautious, should protect herself from disappointment. But there was something about this man, this stranger who had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not quite dared to voice. "My father is at the claim now. I'm heading back there. You could follow if you wanted to discuss employment." "I'd be obliged," Yates said. He gestured to a large black horse tied at the rail. "That's Thunder. He's got a mean streak with strangers, but he is loyal once he knows you." "Like his owner?" Olivia asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Yates laughed, a rich, warm sound that seemed to wrap around her like a blanket on a cold night. "Exactly like his owner." The ride from Republic to the Wright claim took about 40 minutes, following a winding trail into the foothills. Olivia drove the wagon while Yates rode alongside on Thunder, and to her surprise, conversation came easily. He told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, the youngest of 4 brothers, all of them tall like their father. "My mother barely came up to my father's chest," Yates said, "but she ruled that house with an iron fist in a velvet glove. Height ain't got nothing to do with strength of character." "What brought you all the way to Arizona?" Olivia asked, guiding the wagon around a large boulder. "Restlessness, I suppose. My brothers were all married, settled, taking over the ranch. I felt like I was suffocating, like if I didn't leave I would wake up one day 30 years older and full of regrets about all the places I'd never seen." He paused. "That probably sounds foolish." "No," Olivia said quietly. "It sounds honest. What about you? You grow up around here, Kansas originally." "We lived in Abilene until I was 19. Then my mother died and my father couldn't bear to stay. We have been moving ever since, chasing one opportunity after another." "This is the longest we have stayed anywhere in 3 years. You miss having roots?" Olivia considered the question. "I miss having a place where people knew me as more than the tall Wright girl. In Abilene, I had friends, people who had known me since childhood. My height was just part of who I was, not the only thing people saw." "Folks here are blind then," Yates said. "Or maybe they just can't see past their own small-minded notions of what things should be." They crested a rise, and the Wright claim spread below them, a modest operation with a wooden cabin, a few outbuildings, and the entrance to a horizontal shaft dug into the hillside. Richard Wright emerged from the cabin as they approached, wiping his hands on his trousers. He was a man of average height, weathered by hard work and harder losses, with gray threaded through his brown hair and a permanent squint from years in the sun. "Got a visitor, Papa," Olivia called as she set the wagon brake. "This is Yates Lawson. He is looking for work." Richard's eyes traveled up Yates's considerable height as the cowboy dismounted, and something like relief crossed his face. "You have experience with mining operations?" "No, sir, but I'm a fast learner and I ain't afraid of hard work. I've done ranch work, trail driving, even worked on a railroad crew for a spell. I've got a strong back and I follow instructions." "You look like you could move rock better than most," Richard said, his tone approving. "Pay is $1 a day plus meals. Work is sunup to sundown 6 days a week. Sundays are for rest and any personal business. You'd bunk in the spare room in the cabin, nothing fancy but it is clean and dry." "Sounds fair to me," Yates said, extending his hand. Richard shook it, his grip firm despite his smaller stature. "When can you start?" "Right now if you need me." "I need you," Richard confirmed. "Been working alone since my last helper quit 2 weeks ago. Said the claim wasn't producing enough to justify staying. He was probably right, but I am too stubborn to quit." "Stubborn runs in the family," Olivia said, hopping down from the wagon. She began unloading the supplies, and Yates immediately moved to help her. "I can handle it," she said reflexively. "I know you can," Yates replied, "but why should you when I'm standing here with nothing better to do?" Richard watched this exchange with interest, his shrewd gaze moving between his daughter and the new hire. "Olivia, why don't you show Mr. Lawson to his room and give him the tour of the property? I will get these supplies put away. Papa, you should rest. You were up before dawn working the shaft, and I'll be up before dawn tomorrow doing the same. Go on, daughter, show our new hand around." The cabin was simple but well maintained, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area, 2 small bedrooms, and the spare room that would now be Yates's domain. It was barely big enough for a bed and a small chest of drawers, but the window looked out over the valley and caught the evening breeze. "It ain't much," Olivia said, suddenly seeing the modest dwelling through a stranger's eyes and feeling self-conscious about its simplicity. "It's more than I had this morning," Yates said. He set his saddlebags on the bed and turned to face her. "And the company is considerably better." "You shouldn't say things like that," Olivia said, but there was no heat in her words. "Why not, if they are true?" "Because I am not accustomed to hearing them, and I do not know how to respond." Yates moved closer, and Olivia found herself rooted to the spot, caught by the intensity of his gaze. "You don't have to respond any particular way, just be yourself. That's more than enough." "You don't know me well enough to say that." "Then let me get to know you," Yates said simply. "I ain't asking for promises or declarations, just a chance." "My father is right outside," Olivia whispered, suddenly aware of how improper this situation was, standing alone with a man in his bedroom, even one separated by only a thin wall from her father. "Then we should probably rejoin him," Yates agreed, but he did not move immediately. "But first, tell me something. That thing I said in town about you being perfect for a man my size, did I offend you?" Olivia met his eyes, those startling blue eyes that seemed to see right through all her defenses. "No, you surprised me. In my whole life, no one has ever made my height seem like something good, something that fit. You did that with a single sentence." "That's because it is something good," Yates said, "and it does fit. Perfectly." The following days fell into a rhythm that felt both strange and comfortable. Yates proved to be as hard-working as he had promised, rising before dawn to help Richard in the mine shaft, breaking only for the meals Olivia prepared. He was cheerful even when exhausted, quick with a joke or a story, and unfailingly courteous to both Olivia and her father. More importantly, he never treated Olivia as anything other than an equal. When she hauled water from the creek, he did not rush to take the buckets from her. When she worked in the vegetable garden behind the cabin, he did not comment on how unladylike it was for her to be on her knees in the dirt. When she joined them at the shaft one afternoon to help haul out rock, he simply made room for her and matched his pace to hers. "Your daughter is as strong as most men I have worked with," Yates commented to Richard one evening as they sat on the porch after dinner, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. "Her mother was the same," Richard said, tamping tobacco into his pipe. "Emily could outwork anyone when she set her mind to it. Olivia takes after her in more ways than just height." "You must miss her," Yates said quietly. "Every day." Richard lit his pipe, the sweet smoke curling into the evening air. "This wandering life, it ain't what I wanted for Olivia. But I couldn't stay in Kansas, couldn't wake up every morning in the house Emily and I built together, see her things, walk past her grave. I thought moving would make it easier. Maybe I was wrong." "Grief is a peculiar thing," Yates said. "It follows you no matter how far you run." "You speak like someone who knows. Lost my best friend when I was 19. Bull riding accident at a rodeo. One minute we were laughing, planning which saloon to visit that night. The next, he was dead, neck broken. I left Texas 6 months later, couldn't stand being in all the places we'd been together." They sat in companionable silence for a while, two men who understood loss. Inside the cabin, Olivia moved about clearing the dinner dishes, her shadow visible through the window. Both men watched her without speaking. "She is a good girl," Richard finally said. "Deserves better than what life has given her. People can be cruel, especially to those who are different." "Yes, they can," Yates agreed, "but she handles it with more grace than most could manage." "You seem to see her differently than others do." "I see her exactly as she is, and what I see is remarkable." Richard puffed on his pipe, studying the younger man through the smoke. "You have intentions toward my daughter, Mr. Lawson." "I have interest," Yates said carefully. "Whether that develops into intentions depends on whether she shares that interest. But I won't lie to you, sir. From the moment I saw her in town, I felt something I have not felt before. Recognition, maybe. Like I had been looking for her without knowing it." "That is how I felt when I met Emily," Richard said. "I was 20, she was 19. She was serving tables in a restaurant in Kansas City, and I was just a farm boy passing through. I saw her and I knew. Knew she was the one, knew my life had just changed direction, knew I would do whatever it took to make her mine." "How long before you married?" 3 months. "Everyone said we were crazy, that we barely knew each other, but we knew enough. We had 30 years together, and I would not trade a single day, even knowing how it would end." He paused. "My daughter has never had a suitor, Mr. Lawson. Men are intimidated by her or they mock her. You are the first to show her genuine respect and interest. Don't toy with her feelings. She is stronger than she looks, but everyone has their breaking point." "I would never hurt her intentionally, sir. You have my word on that." "See that you don't," Richard said. "Because for all my gray hair and failing eyesight, I can still shoot straight, and I love that girl more than my own life." It was a threat and a blessing wrapped together, and Yates accepted it as both. "Understood, sir." The conversation was interrupted by Olivia emerging onto the porch, drying her hands on her apron. "The dishes are done. I was thinking about taking a walk down to the creek before full dark. It's cooler there." "Would you like company?" Yates asked, rising to his feet. Olivia glanced at her father, who made a small gesture that could have been permission or resignation. "If you are not too tired from working all day." "I'm never too tired for a walk with a pretty girl," Yates said. Olivia rolled her eyes but smiled. "Pretty is not a word anyone has ever used to describe me." "Then you have been surrounded by blind people," Yates replied, offering his arm. After a moment's hesitation, Olivia took it. They walked in comfortable silence down the narrow path that led to the creek, their matched strides covering the ground easily. The evening air was cooling rapidly, as it always did in the desert once the sun went down, and crickets had begun their nightly chorus. The creek gurgled over smooth stones, reflecting the deepening sky. "This is my favorite time of day," Olivia said, settling onto a large flat rock near the water's edge. "When the heat finally breaks and everything feels peaceful." Yates sat beside her close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "It is beautiful country, harsh but beautiful." "You think you will stay?" Olivia asked, then immediately wished she had not. It sounded too eager, too revealing of how much his answer mattered. "You want me to stay?" Yates countered. "That is not a fair question." "Why not?" "Because you are putting the burden of your decision on me." "I'm asking what you want, Olivia. That ain't a burden. That is me caring about your opinion." Olivia stared at the water, watching how it caught the last of the light. "I want you to stay, but I don't want you to stay just for me and then resent me later when you feel trapped." "I won't feel trapped," Yates said. "I have been drifting for years, Olivia, looking for something without knowing what it was. And then I saw you in that general store, carrying those supplies with your head high despite those fools mocking you, and something in me just settled." like I had been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. "That is a pretty speech," Olivia said, her voice shaking slightly. "But pretty speeches don't mean much. Men say things they don't mean all the time." "I ain't most men," Yates said, echoing his words from their first meeting. "And I don't say things I don't mean. Look at me, Olivia." She turned and found herself caught by the intensity in his eyes, the raw honesty there. He reached up and gently tucked a strand of her dark blonde hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "You are beautiful," he said softly. "Your height, your strength, your courage, the way you move like you are completely comfortable in your own skin even when others try to make you feel ashamed. Everything about you is beautiful, and I count myself lucky to have found you." "Yates," she whispered, his name a plea and a prayer. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. "I have been wanting to since the moment we met, but I don't want to presume." Instead of answering, Olivia closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that was tentative at first, then deepening as Yates pulled her closer. It was her first kiss, and she had nothing to compare it to. But she thought it must be something special because she felt it all the way to her toes, a warmth that spread through her entire body and made her forget every cruel word she had ever heard about herself. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Yates rested his forehead against hers. "I am staying," he said. "Not just for you, though you are reason enough, but because I think I could build something here, a real life. And I want to build it with you if you will have me." "We have only known each other a week," Olivia said, but her arms were still around his neck, holding him close. "I know, and I ain't asking you to marry me tomorrow, but I am asking you to let this be something real, something we explore together. Can you do that?" "Yes," Olivia said simply. "Yes, I can do that." They sat by the creek until the stars came out, talking and kissing and making plans. When they finally walked back to the cabin hand in hand, Richard was still on the porch, though his pipe had long since gone cold. He looked at their joined hands, at his daughter's flushed cheeks and bright eyes, and something in his weathered face softened. "Papa," Olivia said, "Yates and we are courting, officially." "I can see that," Richard said mildly. "Yates, you treat her right, you hear?" "Every day, sir." "You have my word." "Then I suppose I should get used to calling you son," Richard said, and Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes at the acceptance in his voice, the blessing implicit in those words. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Olivia's life. Yates courted her with a single-minded devotion that took her breath away, finding small ways to show his affection throughout each day. He left wildflowers on her pillow, taught her to ride his horse Thunder, sat with her in the evenings reading aloud from the books she loved. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, discovering shared opinions and debating differences. The claim began producing better ore, as if the land itself approved of the changes happening above it. Richard hired another worker, a taciturn man named Pete who kept to himself but pulled his weight, which freed up more time for Yates to spend with Olivia. On Sundays, they would ride into Republic for church services, and Olivia noticed how the stairs had changed quality. People still looked, but now it was with curiosity rather than mockery, because Yates Lawson made it clear through every gesture that he was proud to be seen with her. He held her hand in public, pulled out her chair, introduced her with obvious affection in his voice. And his sheer presence, his considerable height and quiet confidence, made others think twice before saying anything unkind. "You have changed things for me," Olivia told him one Sunday afternoon as they walked along the outskirts of town. "I feel different, braver somehow." "You were always brave," Yates said. "I just gave you someone to be brave with instead of always being brave alone." 3 months after they met, on a cool December evening with the first hints of winter in the air, Yates took Olivia back to their spot by the creek. He had been quieter than usual all day, and she had caught him watching her with an expression she could not quite read. "You are making me nervous," she finally said as they sat on their rock. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Yates assured her. "In fact, everything is more right than I ever hoped it could be." He took her hands in his. "Olivia Wright, I know we have not been courting for very long by traditional standards, but I also know my own heart, and I know it belongs to you completely and irrevocably." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "This was my grandmother's ring. My mother gave it to me when I left Texas, said I would know when I found the right woman to give it to." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small but brilliant diamond. "I knew within a day of meeting you. Will you marry me, Olivia? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you, supporting you, being the man you deserve?" Olivia stared at the ring, at this man who had appeared in her life like something out of a dream and proved himself real and true and constant. "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." Yates slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Then he kissed her with a passion that made her forget the cold, forget everything except the feeling of his arms around her, and the certainty that this was where she belonged. They were married on a Saturday in late January of 1884, in the small church in Republic, with the entire town in attendance. Olivia wore her mother's wedding dress, altered to fit her taller frame, and carried wildflowers that Yates had ridden miles to find. Richard cried openly as he walked his daughter down the aisle, placing her hand in Yates's with a benediction whispered too softly for anyone else to hear. "Take care of my girl, son. With my life, sir." The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Yates lifted Olivia clean off her feet to kiss her, eliciting cheers and applause from the congregation. For the first time in her life, Olivia felt completely and utterly cherished, seen for who she truly was and loved because of it, not in spite of it. The reception was held at the larger of Republic's two saloons, which had been decorated and cleared of its usual vices for the occasion. There was dancing and food and toasts to the happy couple. Even some of the young men who had mocked Olivia that first day came to offer their congratulations, shame-faced and sincere. "You got yourself a good one, Lawson," one of them said. "We were fools." "Yes, you were," Yates agreed amiably. "But at least you are smart enough to realize it now." As the evening wore on and the party showed no signs of slowing, Yates leaned close to whisper in Olivia's ear. "Want to escape for a bit? I have something to show you." Curious, Olivia let him lead her outside and around to the back of the saloon where Thunder was waiting, saddled and ready. "Where are we going? You will see," Yates said mysteriously. He mounted and pulled her up behind him, and Olivia wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her cheek against his back as they rode out of town. 20 minutes later, they stopped in front of a small cabin she had never seen before, set in a little valley with a creek running nearby and cottonwood trees providing shade. Lamplight glowed in the windows and smoke curled from the chimney. "What is this?" Olivia asked as Yates helped her down. "Our home," he said simply. "I have been working on it for the past 2 months with your father's help. It ain't finished yet, needs furniture and curtains and a woman's touch. But the structure is sound, the roof doesn't leak, and it is ours." Olivia stared at the cabin, emotions overwhelming her. "You built us a house." "Well, your father and I built us a house, and Pete helped some, even got a few of the men from town to pitch in, believe it or not." He took her hand. "I know you have been living out of your father's cabin, moving from place to place for years. I wanted you to have roots again, Olivia. A place that was yours, that no one could take away or force you to leave. She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I love you. I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Don't be scared," Yates said, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "I love you just as much, probably more, definitely more." "That is mathematically impossible," Olivia said with a watery laugh. "I don't care about mathematics, I care about you." He swept her up into his arms, carrying her toward the cabin. "Now, Mrs. Lawson, let me show you our home." The interior was simple but well built, with a main room, a separate bedroom, and even a small study that Yates said was for her books. The furniture was sparse but adequate, clearly handmade but crafted with care. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, and the bed was made up with clean linens. "It is perfect," Olivia whispered. "Absolutely perfect. You are perfect," Yates corrected, setting her down gently. "The house is just wood and nails." Their wedding night was everything Olivia had dreamed of and more, a joining not just of bodies but of souls, a completion of something that had begun the moment Yates had defended her honor on a dusty street in Republic. He was gentle and patient, guiding her through the newness of intimacy with tender care, and when she finally fell asleep in his arms, she felt safer and more loved than ever before in her life. The following months unfolded with a contentment that felt almost surreal after so many years of loneliness and mockery. Yates continued working the claim with Richard, and the silver they had hoped for finally revealed itself in a vein rich enough to make them all comfortable, if not wealthy. They hired more workers, expanded the operation, and Richard began talking about retiring within a few years, leaving the claim to Yates and Olivia. Olivia transformed their cabin into a true home, sewing curtains from fabric she purchased in Republic, planting a garden that would provide vegetables through the summer, acquiring chickens for eggs, and a milk cow for dairy. She took pride in keeping house, not because society expected it, but because she wanted to create a haven for the man she loved. Yates was attentive and affectionate, never missing an opportunity to show his love. He kissed her goodbye each morning before heading to the claim, kissed her hello each evening when he returned. He complimented her cooking, admired her garden, read to her in the evenings, and made love to her with a passion that never seemed to dim. In late spring, Olivia realized she had missed her monthly courses and felt a fluttering hope that she barely dared acknowledge. When 2 months passed with the same absence, along with morning sickness and tender breasts, she could no longer deny the truth. She was with child. She told Yates one evening after dinner, simply taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." The look on his face was worth capturing in a photograph had they owned a camera. Wonder, joy, fear, and fierce protectiveness all flickered across his features in rapid succession. "A baby? Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without seeing a doctor. All the signs are there." Yates let out a whoop of joy that probably carried all the way to the claim, then lifted her and spun her around the cabin, laughing like a madman. "We are having a baby. I am going to be a father." "Careful," Olivia said, laughing despite herself. "You will make me dizzy." He set her down immediately, his hands moving to cup her face. "Are you well? Do you need anything? Should you be resting?" "I am fine," Olivia assured him. "Women have babies all the time, Yates. I am not fragile." "You are precious," he corrected. "You and this baby are the most precious things in the world to me." When they told Richard the news, he wept openly, pulling Olivia into a fierce embrace. "Your mother would be so happy," he said. "So proud of the woman you have become, the life you are building." "I wish she could be here to meet her grandchild," Olivia said softly. "She will be," Richard said. "Not in body, maybe, but in spirit. And in you, daughter, you carry her forward in everything you do." The pregnancy progressed without complication, though Olivia's height meant she showed earlier and more prominently than smaller women. She refused to be confined to the cabin, continuing to work in her garden and manage the household well into her 7th month. Yates fretted constantly, trying to get her to rest more, but he also understood that idleness would make her miserable. "Promise me you will not try to haul water or chop wood," he pleaded. "Those things I can do. Everything else, I know better than to try to stop you." "Deal," Olivia agreed, though she sometimes cheated when he was at the claim and felt guilty about it later. In November of 1884, on a cool, clear evening, Olivia went into labor. Yates rode to Republic at breakneck speed to fetch the midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Chen, who had delivered half the babies in the territory. Richard stayed with Olivia, holding her hand and trying not to look as terrified as he felt. "It is going to be fine, Papa," Olivia gasped between contractions. "Women do this all the time." "Your mother said the same thing," Richard said, his voice thick with old grief. "Right before she died giving birth to your stillborn brother." Olivia squeezed his hand hard. "I am not Mama, and this baby is coming strong, I can feel it. Stop borrowing trouble." But Richard could not help but remember, could not help but fear, and when Yates returned with Mrs. Chen, the midwife took one look at the two panicked men and banished them from the cabin. "You are both useless in here. Go boil water or something. I will call you when the baby comes." The labor lasted 14 hours, and Yates paced a trench in the ground outside the cabin, while Richard sat on the porch steps with his head in his hands. Every cry from inside made them both flinch, and when the cries finally stopped, replaced by an eerie silence, Yates thought his heart would stop entirely. Then a new sound split the air, the lusty wail of a newborn, and both men were on their feet in an instant. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, smiling broadly. "You have a son, Mr. Lawson. A big healthy boy, and your wife did beautifully. You can come in now." Yates nearly knocked her over in his haste to get inside. Olivia was propped up in bed, pale and exhausted but glowing with triumph, holding a bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. She looked up as he entered, and her smile was radiant. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Yates approached the bed on legs that felt like jelly, hardly daring to breathe. Olivia pulled back the blanket to reveal a red-faced infant with a shock of dark hair and tiny fists waving in indignation at being thrust into the cold world. "He was perfect, absolutely perfect. Can I hold him?" Yates whispered. "He is yours to hold," Olivia said, carefully transferring the baby into his father's arms. "I was thinking we could name him Samuel after your father, if that sits well with you." "Samuel Lawson," Yates said, testing the name. He looked down at his son, at this tiny miracle who was part him and part Olivia, and felt something fundamental shift in his soul. "That sits just fine. Hello, Samuel. I am your papa, and I promise to spend every day of my life making sure you grow up knowing you are loved." The baby's eyes opened, unfocused but somehow seeming to look right at his father, and Yates felt tears slide down his cheeks unchecked. Richard appeared beside them, looking down at his grandson with wonder. "He is beautiful, daughter, just beautiful, and you did so well." "I had good examples," Olivia said, reaching for her father's hand. "Mama's strength and your stubborn refusal to give up." Mrs. Chen bustled about, making sure Olivia was comfortable and instructing Yates on how to support the baby's head. By the time she finally left, promising to return the next day to check on mother and child, Yates had been holding Samuel for over an hour and showed no signs of wanting to put him down. "You should sleep," he told Olivia. "You must be exhausted." "I am," she admitted. "But I don't want to close my eyes. What if I opened them and this was all a dream?" "Then we will be having the same dream," Yates said, carefully settling onto the bed beside her with Samuel still cradled in his arms. "Because this right here, you and our son, this is everything I never knew I needed, and I ain't ever letting it go." They fell asleep that way, the three of them curled together in the big bed, a family now in the truest sense of the word. The following years were full and rich, marked by the milestones of Samuel's growth and the deepening of Yates and Olivia's love. The claim continued to produce, and they were able to save money, expand their cabin, even purchase more land. Richard built himself a small house nearby, saying he wanted his own space, but really just wanting to be close to his daughter and grandson. Samuel grew into a sturdy, happy child who clearly had inherited his parents' height. By age 3, he was already tall for his age, and Yates would tease Olivia that their son would probably end up even taller than both of them combined. "We will need to raise the roof," he would joke, and Olivia would laugh and swat at him playfully. When Samuel was 4, Olivia became pregnant again, and this time the pregnancy felt easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect. Their daughter Clara was born in the spring of 1889, a tiny thing compared to her brother but perfectly healthy and possessed of an impressive set of lungs. "She is going to keep us on our toes," Mrs. Chen predicted as she handed the squalling infant to Olivia. "This one has opinions." The midwife was right. Clara was spirited and strong-willed from the start, wanting what she wanted when she wanted it and not afraid to make her displeasure known. But she also adored her brother, and Samuel was fiercely protective of his baby sister, appointing himself her guardian and champion. Watching her children play together, seeing Yates swing Clara up onto his shoulders while Samuel rode on his back, Olivia sometimes had to pinch herself to believe this was her life. The tall, mocked girl from the general store seemed like another person entirely, someone from a different lifetime. "What are you thinking about?" Yates asked one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, the children finally asleep after a long day. "About how much has changed," Olivia said. "About how lucky I am." "We are the lucky ones," Yates corrected. "Me and the kids, we get to love you." "That thing you said that first day in Republic about me being perfect for a man your size, did you know then? Did you know we would end up here?" Yates considered the question. "I knew something. I knew you were important, that meeting you meant something." "Did I know we would get married and have 2 beautiful children and build this life? No, I couldn't have predicted all the details. But I knew in my gut that you were my person, and I was supposed to be yours. The rest was just details we had to work out." "I love you," Olivia said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I love the life we have built together." "I love you too," Yates said, pressing a kiss to her hair. "And I love that I get to keep building it with you every single day." When Samuel turned 7, they enrolled him in the school that had been established in Republic, and Clara cried because she was too young to go with him. To console her, Olivia began teaching her at home and discovered her daughter had inherited her love of books and learning. "She is going to be smarter than all of us combined," Yates said proudly, watching 4-year-old Clara sound out words from the primer. "She gets that from her mother," Richard said. He was graying rapidly now, moving more slowly than he once had, but still sharp-minded and devoted to his grandchildren. The claim had been sold to a mining company 2 years earlier for a sum that ensured financial security for the whole family. Yates now worked as a foreman for the company, overseeing operations but no longer having to do the back-breaking labor himself. It gave him more time at home, which he treasured. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Yates surprised Olivia with a trip to San Francisco, their first time traveling farther than the nearby towns. They left the children with Richard and his new wife Martha. a widow he had courted shyly for 2 years before finally proposing, and set off on what Yates called a second honeymoon. San Francisco was overwhelming and exciting, full of noise and people and opportunities to do things they had never done before. They ate at fancy restaurants, saw a play, walked along the waterfront. And everywhere they went, Olivia realized that in a city full of diverse people, her height barely registered as unusual. There were tall women, short women, women of every size and shape, all going about their business without apology. "I could get used to this," she told Yates as they strolled through Golden Gate Park, "not being stared at all the time." "You should always have had that," Yates said, "but I am glad you are getting to experience it now." "I don't regret our life in Republic," Olivia assured him. "This is wonderful, but it is not home. Home is our cabin, our children, our life together." "That is good," Yates said, pulling her close, "because I would miss all those things terribly if we stayed here, especially the children. Samuel can only go so long without trying to ride something he shouldn't, and Clara without supervision is a recipe for disaster." They returned home a week later, refreshed, and even more in love than when they had left. The children tackled them with hugs and stories about everything they had done with grandfather Richard and grandmother Martha, and Olivia felt her heart expand with contentment. More years passed, marked by the ordinary miracles of family life. Samuel grew into a tall, lanky teenager with his father's easy charm and his mother's steadiness. Clara became a voracious reader who announced at age 10 that she intended to become a teacher. They had heated debates at the dinner table, played games on Sunday afternoons, celebrated birthdays and holidays with extended family that now included Martha's children from her first marriage. Richard passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1896, and they buried him next to Emily's grave, which they had moved from Kansas years earlier. Olivia grieved deeply, but found comfort in knowing her father had lived to see her happy, had been part of his grandchildren's lives, and had found love again in his final years with Martha. "He was proud of you," Yates told her as they stood by the grave after the funeral. "He told me once that watching you blossom into the woman you became, seeing you create this family, it healed something in him that broke when your mother died." "I hope I made him proud," Olivia said through tears. "You did, my love. Every single day of his life you made him proud." Samuel went off to university when he turned 18, determined to study engineering. Clara, now 14, declared the house too quiet without her brother, and threw herself into her studies with renewed intensity, already making plans for her own education. "We are going to be empty nesters before we know it," Yates said one evening, watching Clara bent over her schoolwork at the kitchen table. "I know," Olivia said. "It seems impossible. Wasn't I just holding them as babies?" "Time has a way of slipping through our fingers," Yates agreed. "But we have raised good children, Olivia. Strong, kind, capable. They are going to do well in this world." "Because they had a good father," Olivia said. "You showed them what a man should be, especially Samuel. You taught him to be gentle and strong at the same time, to respect women, to work hard but not let work consume him." "I just taught him what you taught me," Yates said. "How to love without reservation, how to be a partner instead of a tyrant, how to see people for who they really are instead of what society says they should be." Clara looked up from her books. "Are you two being sappy again? Because I am trying to study." "We are allowed to be sappy," Yates said. "We have earned it after 18 years of marriage." 19 years, Olivia corrected. "Our anniversary is next month." 19 years of bliss, Yates amended, winking at Clara, who rolled her eyes but smiled. When Clara left for the Teachers' College in Phoenix in 1902, the house did feel too empty. too quiet. Olivia found herself drifting through rooms that seemed too large for just two people, picking up books the children had left behind, touching toys that had long since been outgrown, but that she could not bring herself to discard. "Come here," Yates said one evening, finding her in Samuel's old room, holding the wooden horse he had carved for their son's 5th birthday. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I miss them too. But they will visit and we will write letters, and before you know it, they will be back for holidays with stories to tell." "I know," Olivia said. "I'm proud of them truly, but the house feels so empty." "Then we will have to fill it," Yates said. "Maybe not with more children, but with life. We could host dinners, invite friends over, travel more. We have the time and the means now. Let's use them." And so they did. They traveled to places they had only read about, hosted gatherings that became legendary in Republic for Olivia's cooking and Yates's stories. They visited Samuel in his engineering firm in Denver, where he was making a name for himself designing bridges. They attended Clara's graduation from Teachers College and watched with pride as she took a position at a school in Tucson. Through it all, their love remained the foundation of everything. They still sat together on the porch watching sunsets, still held hands when they walked through town, still looked at each other with the same wonder they had felt that first day in Republic 19 years earlier. On their 25th anniversary in 1909, their children surprised them by coming home for a party. Samuel brought his new wife, Margaret, a petite woman who barely came up to his chest but who had a spine of steel and a wicked sense of humor. Clara brought news that she was engaged to a fellow teacher named Thomas, who was nearly as tall as Clara herself and clearly adored her. "Look at us," Olivia said, surveying the crowded cabin full of family and friends. "How did we get so lucky?" "It wasn't luck," Yates said, pulling her onto the makeshift dance floor they had cleared in the main room. "It was choice. You chose to give me a chance. I chose to stay. We chose to build this life together, brick by brick, day by day. That ain't luck. That is love and work and faith." As they danced, Olivia caught sight of their reflection in the window, two tall people moving together in perfect synchronization, surrounded by the life they had built. She thought about the girl she had been, standing in that general store feeling worthless and unwanted. She thought about all the years of mockery and loneliness, the certainty that she would never find someone who could love her as she was. And then she looked up at her husband, this man who had seen her and chosen her and spent 25 years proving that his words that first day were not just pretty speeches, but a promise he intended to keep forever. "What are you thinking?" Yates asked, as he so often did. "That you were right," Olivia said. "I was perfect for a man your size, and you were perfect for me." "Am perfect," Yates corrected, "because I ain't done yet. We have a lot more years to fill, Mrs. Lawson." "Then we better make them good ones," Olivia said. "With you, they can't be anything but good," Yates replied, and kissed her as their children cheered and their friends applauded, and the night stretched out before them full of promise. The years continued to unfold with a gentle grace. Samuel and Margaret had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and Clara and Thomas had twin daughters who inherited their mother's fierce intelligence and their father's patience. The cabin that had once seemed too empty filled regularly with grandchildren, their laughter and chaos a joyful reminder that the family Olivia and Yates had created was growing and thriving. Olivia became the family matriarch, the center around which everyone orbited, offering advice and comfort and her famous apple pie. Yates, now in his 50s, had retired from the mining company but kept busy with various projects, building furniture for the grandchildren, helping neighbors with repairs, serving on the town council. They watched Republic grow and change, as the new century brought automobiles and electricity, and all manner of modern conveniences. The rough mining town of their youth became a proper community with paved streets and a hospital, and even a library that Clara helped establish during one of her visits home. Remember when this was all dust and desperation? Yates asked one afternoon as they walked down Republic's Main Street, now lined with established businesses and shade trees. I remember when I could barely walk down this street without someone making a comment about my height, Olivia said. Now I'm just Mrs. Lawson, the tall lady married to the tall man. Progress, Yates said with satisfaction. Slow, but it comes eventually. They celebrated their 30th anniversary quietly, just the two of them, with a picnic by the creek where Yates had proposed all those years ago. The cottonwood trees had grown tall and full, providing deep shade, and the water still gurgled over the same smooth stones. If I could go back and tell that scared young woman in the general store what her life would become, she would never believe me, Olivia said, leaning against Yates's shoulder. Oh, I don't know, Yates said thoughtfully. I think she would. Because she was brave enough to hope, even when everything told her not to. That is what I saw in her that first day. Not just her height or her strength, but her hope. She hadn't given up, not really. She was still walking with her head high, still going about her business. That takes a special kind of courage. You saw all that in one look, Olivia asked, smiling. I saw you, Yates said simply, and that was enough. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in familiar shades of orange and purple, they packed up their picnic and rode home together, their bodies moving in the easy rhythm of 30 years of partnership. The cabin lights glowed warm and welcoming. Smoke curled from the chimney even though it was summer because Olivia had been baking bread, and everything about the scene spoke of home and permanence and love. Thank you, Olivia said suddenly as they dismounted. For what? Yates asked, genuinely puzzled. For seeing me, for staying, for building this life with me, for proving that the mockery and cruelty of small-minded people did not get to define who I was or what I could have. Yates tied off the horses and came to stand in front of her, cupping her face in his weathered hands. You would have been fine without me, you know. You were already strong and brave and beautiful. I just got lucky enough to be the one who got to witness it, to be part of your story. Our story, Olivia corrected. It stopped being just mine the moment you walked into it. Our story, Yates agreed, and it ain't over yet. We still have chapters to write, and write them they did. They traveled to visit their children and grandchildren, attended school plays and baseball games and graduations. They welcomed Samuel's fourth child, another boy, and Clara's third pregnancy, which resulted in a son who was promptly nicknamed Tiny, despite being anything but. They nursed each other through illnesses, celebrated each other's victories, supported each other through losses. Martha passed away, and they mourned with her children. Yates's oldest brother died, and they traveled to Texas for the funeral, where Yates introduced Olivia to family members she had only heard about in stories. Your wife is magnificent, Yates's sister-in-law said. We can see why you left Texas and never came back. A woman like that is worth staying put for. Through it all, Republic remained their home, their anchor. The town that had once been so unwelcoming to Olivia had become a place where she was respected and valued, where she served on committees and organized charity drives, and was greeted warmly wherever she went. The tall girl who had carried flour sacks alone was now surrounded by friends and family and community. On a warm day in June of 1919, on what would be their 35th wedding anniversary, Yates woke early and watched his wife sleep. She was in her late 50s now, her dark blonde hair threaded with silver, her face lined by years of laughter and weather. To him, she was more beautiful than the day they had met, because now her beauty was layered with all the years they had shared, all the memories they had made. Olivia's eyes opened and she smiled sleepily. "You are staring at me again." "Can't help it," Yates said. "Still can't quite believe you are real sometimes. After 35 years, you would think you would be used to me by now." "Never," Yates said, "and I hope I never am. The day you stop taking my breath away is the day they can put me in the ground." They spent the day as they had spent so many others, in simple companionship, tending the garden, reading on the porch, preparing dinner together. That evening, their children and grandchildren arrived unexpectedly, filling the house with noise and love and celebration. Samuel stood to make a toast, his own hair starting to gray at the temples. "To my parents, who showed me what real love looks like. You taught me that the right partner is not someone who completes you, but someone who complements you. Someone who sees your strengths and helps you build on them, who sees your weaknesses and loves you anyway." Clara raised her glass next. "To Mama and Papa, who never let the world tell them what they could or could not be. Mama, you taught me that being different is not the same as being less. Papa, you taught me that real strength is gentle. Together, you taught us all what it means to build a life on respect and love." The grandchildren, ranging from teenagers to toddlers, chorused their own tributes, some eloquent and some simply variations of "I love you." And Olivia found herself crying happy tears that Yates gently wiped away with his thumb, just as he had done countless times over the decades. When everyone had finally gone home or settled into their makeshift beds throughout the house, Yates and Olivia sat on the porch one last time, looking up at the stars. 35 years, Olivia marveled. "It seems impossible." 35 years, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat," Yates said. "Every single day with you has been a gift. Even the hard ones, especially the hard ones," Yates said, "because we got through them together and that made us stronger." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of knowing someone so well that words are often unnecessary. Finally, Yates spoke again. "You remember what I said to you that first day, about you being perfect for a man my size?" "Of course I remember. It changed my life." "Well, I need to amend that statement," Yates said. "You are not just perfect for a man my size. You are perfect, period. Your height is just one small part of who you are, and who you are is the most remarkable person I have ever known." Olivia leaned over to kiss him, a soft, sweet kiss that held 35 years of love and commitment and partnership. "And you are the man who saw that when no one else did, who made me believe it when I had stopped believing in myself. That is a gift I can never fully repay." "You don't need to repay it," Yates said. "You gave me yourself, and that is more than enough." The years continued their steady march. Yates and Olivia grew older but not apart, their love deepening rather than fading with time. They became great-grandparents, welcomed new members into the ever-expanding family, said goodbye to old friends who passed on. When Yates turned 70, he admitted to Olivia that he was slowing down, that tasks that once came easily now required more effort. But he still walked with her every evening, still held her hand in church, still looked at her with eyes full of love. "I am the luckiest man alive," he told her on a crisp autumn evening in 1925, their 41st anniversary. "I found you when I was lost, and you have been my North Star ever since." "I was the lost one," Olivia protested. "You found me. We found each other," Yates said. "That is what matters." They were sitting on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the chill, watching the sun set over the mountains. The cabin behind them was quiet, just the two of them for this particular anniversary, though the family would gather the following weekend. "You ever regret it?" Olivia asked suddenly. Staying here, you talked about seeing the world, about restlessness. Did I trap you? Never, Yates said fiercely, turning to face her. You set me free, Olivia. Before you, I was drifting, searching for something I couldn't name. You gave me purpose, gave me roots, gave me a reason to build instead of wander. I have seen more beauty in your eyes than I could have found in 100 countries. I have had more adventure in our life together than I could have had in a lifetime of drifting. I love you, Olivia whispered. I have loved you from the moment you told those boys to leave me alone, and I will love you until my last breath. And beyond, Yates added, because love like ours doesn't end with death. It's too strong, too rooted. We will find each other again somehow. They sat together until the stars came out, two people who had defied expectations and built something beautiful from what the world had dismissed as imperfect. Olivia thought about the girl she had been, tall and mocked and alone. She thought about all the years since, the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the life she and Yates had created together. No regrets, she said softly. Not a single one, Yates agreed. And as they rose to go inside, their bodies moving with the careful stiffness of age but their hands clasped as tightly as ever, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that the mockery she had endured, the pain of being different, had all led her to this moment, to this man, to this life. She was not too tall. She had never been too tall. She had been exactly the right height for the man she was meant to find, and he had been exactly the right man for her. Together, they were perfect. The story of Olivia Wright and Yates Lawson continued for many more years, a testament to the power of love to transform and heal and endure. They lived long enough to see their great-grandchildren grow, to celebrate 50 years of marriage, to watch Republic evolve from a rough mining town into a thriving community. When Yates finally passed away at the age of 82, peacefully in his sleep with Olivia holding his hand, the entire town mourned. His funeral drew hundreds of people, all with stories about his kindness, his wisdom, his unwavering devotion to his family. Olivia lived 3 more years without him, surrounded by her children and their descendants, telling stories about their grandfather, keeping his memory alive. She never remarried, saying once was enough when you married the right person. On a spring morning in 1931, Olivia passed away in the cabin she and Yates had built together. Her children gathered around her bedside. Her last words were, "I am coming, my love." And Clara later said she died with a smile on her face, as if she could already see him waiting. They buried her next to Yates in the Republic Cemetery, under a shared headstone that reads simply, Yates and Olivia Lawson, beloved husband and wife, perfect for each other. And in the years that followed, their descendants would tell the story of how they met, how Yates had defended Olivia against mockery, how he had said she was perfect for a man his size. The story became family legend, passed down through generations, a reminder that love finds us in unexpected ways, and that being different is not a flaw but a gift, as long as we find someone who sees us clearly and loves us completely. The cabin still stands in Republic, Arizona, maintained by the Lawson family as a reminder of where it all began. Visitors can see the porch where Yates and Olivia sat watching countless sunsets, the bedroom where their children were born, the kitchen where Olivia cooked thousands of meals. But more than the physical structure, they can feel the love that permeated every corner, the love that began with a simple statement on a dusty street and grew into a legacy that would endure for generations. Because in the end, that is what matters. Not our height or our appearance or what others think of us, but how we love and are loved in return. Yates and Olivia understood this, lived it every day of their lives together, and left behind not just descendants but a blueprint for how to build a life on respect, compassion, and unwavering commitment. Their story proves that the right person will see us not as too much or too little, but as exactly right. That mockery and cruelty do not have to define us. That love, real love, sees past superficial differences to the person beneath and says, "You are perfect just as you are." And somewhere in Arizona, in a small cemetery surrounded by mountains, two tall people rest side by side, their love story complete but never forgotten, an inspiration to all who hear it, and a reminder that perfect is not a size or a shape but a feeling, a recognition, a coming home to someone who sees you clearly and loves you completely, exactly as you are.